Hey there, my name is Al. I have a video for you today that covers a little bit of color theory and the theory of lighting inside of movies, 3D, things like that. So if you love all things 3D, be sure to subscribe. So let me start off by saying, with any career path in animation, whether it's modeling, texturing, lighting, sculpting, rigging, whatever, it's incredibly wide and it's incredibly deep. So this video, we're only going to get our toes wet. But I hope that after watching this video, you can view movies, art, and video games, maybe through a new lens, or in a new light. See what I did there? So if you haven't watched the previous video of 3-point lighting in Maya, you can watch it above. It's going to give you a lot more information about key, fill, and rim lights. But we're going to go through some movie examples of different lighting. Key light is this direction. Key light is our main light. It's typically, in this instance, our brightest light. And if we just had this area would be very dark. So we have a fill light to brighten up some of those shadows so we can see her face. And then we have a rim light. So in this instance, the rim light does a very good job of separating the subject, which is this woman, from the background. Same kind of thing here. These are just examples I got off Google. Our key light's from this side. We can actually kind of guess where the position is. So it's this direction. It's also higher up. We can see the shadow on his nose. We have a fill light coming this direction, brightening up some of those shadows once again. And then we have a rim light. This arrow points to this, which is that light, but that's actually the chair. So over here, it's probably a better example on his shoulder. We got some rim light. So like I said, if you haven't watched the previous video, go watch that one. That's going to dive into how you actually implement 3-point lighting in 3D software. So we can't really talk about lighting without first talking a little bit about color. So we can use color to play on the emotions of the audience. Now this is dependent upon which country and region you're in, but we're going to talk in terms of United States. So some colors mean different things slightly to other countries. So for example, in America, red can mean alert. All our stop signs are red, fire exits are red. So it can be high alert, it can be alarming, it can also be passion, it can be blood, it can be hate. So these very typically intense emotions. If you look here on the left, those are some intense colors. Red can also be love and things like that. So it's not all negative or positive. There's all kinds of things with red. Yellow can be joyous, it can be bright, cheerful, sunny, but in this example, it's attention. So yellow can be like, hey, look at me. So that's kind of what we have going on here. There's lots of things you can do with green. Typically in America, we have your green with envy. So it can be jealousy. It can represent money. It can also represent nature and the earth. Green can also be used to show disgust, something that's gross. So we're going to talk about red and blue a little bit more later on. So we're going to skip red and blue. Purple is exotic. If you think long time ago, the dye purple was very expensive and hard to make, hard to come by. So it still today can represent royalty, mystery, intrigue. And then this pink, I've never seen this movie. I think it's the Grand Budapest Hotel. But the use of color, like I said, I've never seen this movie, so maybe I'm totally wrong. But since this isn't like a deep red, this pink color is kind of flirtatious in my mind. So I don't know if there's a relationship between these two actors or not. But that's kind of what I'm getting from this. Could be totally wrong. No idea. Most of you have seen Inside Out. And let me get on my soapbox for a second, ever so briefly. Inside Out ranks right above Cars 2 on my list of favorite Pixar movies. I know, I'm gonna make some of you mad, but I did not enjoy Inside Out. All right, off my soapbox. Green was disgust. Purple was fear, which is interesting to me. I don't necessarily agree with that, but if you tie fear into the mystery, the mysterious, that definitely works. Yellow was joy. We saw that. Blue was sadness. Red, anger. So this is just different temperature and lighting. So on the left-hand side, we have warm colors that transition to white. We're going to call white neutral for this example. And then we have these cool colors over here. So like blue to this kind of orange. So cool lighting can evoke things like being cold. It could be winter. like that literal cold feeling. It could also be more metaphorical, right? So if somebody is cold, that means they might be distant. These cool colors could be mechanical, depressed, isolated, but there's also positive things. Most work environments, right? If you work in an office, they'll have this neutral white lighting or this slightly cool tint, so it could be professional. And let's talk about warm colors. So if you think about thousands of years ago, when humans regularly gathered around like a nightly fire, campfires are what was the purpose? Well, they're warm, they can keep us safe. Animals that might want to eat us typically don't like fire. So there's lots of good things that a fire brought to society. So if we look on the left-hand side of these, warm lighting can evoke a feeling of home or safety, passion, love, hope. It can also evoke things like anger or this fire building inside of us, or even this playfulness. So if you imagine a campfire, right? It's warm, it's cozy. We can elicit those feelings to our viewer as well. Like, oh, this is a possibly good place. Now, every rule can be broken, so this is not a rule. This is just some thoughts on lighting and temperature. So, following examples, color is used more as a storytelling device. So if you don't know what this is an image from The Matrix. Wonderful movie. I really enjoyed the trilogy. But why does this film have a green tint? So if you're unfamiliar with The Matrix, basically, machines have harvested humans for energy so they can power themselves and their world. And spoiler alert, the world is called the Matrix, and it's artificial, it's fake, it's basically a computer program. So when the characters are actually in the Matrix, and not the real world, so to speak, everything has this green tint to it. So this just harkens back to, old computer screens with the green text and black background. And this was done less with lighting and more with color grading, but the idea is the same. Here's another example with that green tint. It's just all over the world in the Matrix. Now, this is also a shot from the Matrix, but what do you notice about the lighting? So if we go back, this is it's cool lighting, right? We've got those cool green colors. And this still has that cool feel to it. It's definitely not warm lighting, but it's almost as if the green fog has been removed. So this is definitely more of a white or a blue tint to it. So it still makes us feel cold, distant, kind of decrepit. Even with the background, we get that feeling, but we can see clearly. So they are unplugged from the Matrix currently, and their lighting reflects that as well. It's not going to be this really warm, cozy lighting because it's still kind of has the idea that we are fighting and struggling against the machines, but they can see more clearly. This is an ending scene from the third Matrix. Obviously, as you can notice, there are warm colors that are just flooding these two characters' faces. It's quite the contrast. Most of the movie has been this, or this, and then the ending scene we have this, right? So this is that hopeful point in the movie. It's this warm, cozy feeling, and there's hope for humanity. It's really, it contrasts everything so greatly. Next up, here's a shot from Terminator 2. And from a story standpoint, how does the lighting push the story forward? Story-wise, Arnold Schwarzenegger plays a machine, and he is sent to protect John Connor. Okay, so he's very cold, calculated machine. But the storyline, he kind of changes, and he has this protector mentality for John Connor. Almost like a loving protector. I won't say loving, but it's like almost like that, like a good friend. So on the left-hand side, we have that cool blue lighting, which represents, the mechanical side of his nature. And we have this warmer side. Like I said, almost. I can't say loving, but it's almost this loving guidance and protecting of this machine. So we have both worlds there in the lighting and both worlds in the character. So not every scene in regards to the lighting has to have a deeper meaning. I just found this image on Google. No idea if this is some musical artist. No idea. Possibly this individual wanted to create the mood of he feels like he has these really intense things coming from both sides of him on the left and the right, to be denoted by the red. And then in the center, he's cool, calm, and collected with this cool blue light. Or maybe it's just like, oh, this looks awesome. Let's just run with that, right? That's okay too. So John Wick is a great example. There's lots of things with the lighting, but a lot of it just looks awesome, and that's totally okay. Here we're going to take just a look at some ArtStation examples of some very extreme rim lighting. So this artist is fantastic. Most of his work just catches your eye with this really intense rim light. So they have a key, they have a fill light, super intense rim light, which you can really use to make a very unique piece of work. Alright, so this is a shot from Black Panther, and we can see from the lighting, okay, we've got this warm light coming from this direction. Maybe behind him a little bit, this direction. We can see this shadow here. Not a whole lot of hard shadows anywhere, but that's interesting. We're going to talk about this a little bit more. Here's a shot a few moments later during this really sweet fight scene. Notice where the sun is. This should be the only light source in this entire scene. Like there's no other lights. This is just out in this little pool. Sun is setting. It's supposed to be the only light source. So if you look at this shoulder over here, tell me, where is that light coming from? The light source is over here. He has a shield that's pushed to the left. This should be completely in shadow. So when I was watching this the first time, it was like, man, I love this fighting. Everything's cool, but something just doesn't feel right. Same thing here. Sun is behind him. There he is. Let's look at the sun. And it's casting this warm yellow over all of this area. And back here, this is great. And then like right here, it just stops casting that yellow light. Or at least it seems to, right? This seems like white lighting over here. It's no longer this warm yellow. Feels like white light. Even on like some of the lights on their head, it's this white studio light. So this is a shot. I got it from Google. We have the sun that's similar, right? The sun is kind of setting. This is a little bit lower on the horizon. But we have this orange light that's just flooding everything. Every aspect of this image. Obviously these are orange rocks, but look at his pants, right? He has these dark blue or black pants that become orange just because of this lighting. Same thing here, the sun pretty much has set. Look how dark this is. If we were to back up, same thing here. The back side of this character, this individual is very dark. Same thing here, we can kind of see, but not very well. So the following, the top is the original, the bottom is just a really terrible paint over that I did of what the lighting might look like if we were to take what we know from actual light, how it behaves, because there is light that's going to hit on this side, but that's bounce light. That's the sun reflecting off these rocks and everything, off the canyon walls and bouncing around. So there is some light that we can see, but nothing like this. We can see these characters perfectly fine. And this is probably what this scene would look like. Okay, if this were an accurate lighting, this is probably something like that it could look like. Same thing with this. We have the light source back here. This is going to be very dark. So we can see why the scene feels off. It's due to the lighting and the cheats that they used so the characters would be seen. So I get why they lit it this way and how it's inaccurate, but the scene as a whole just feels off, at least to me. I'm sure it feels off to some of you as well if you were to rewatch it. If I were the director, I would have said, yeah, that shot is really cool, but we can't pull it off without it looking really funky because we're going to need other lights. So cheating and making sure your character is visible is definitely the most important part, but because of that, the characters don't feel grounded. Okay, we're going to talk about composition. You can do all your research on composition. We are not going to spend too much time here. But composition is the arrangement or placement of visual elements in a piece of artwork. Let's take a look at the Last Supper. It says, notice the inverted triangle shape between Christ and John the Beloved, the figure directly to the left. And we're talking about here, the shape in the negative space. So this draws the eye to the focal point, Bryce is the focal point, but then directs the line to the table. So it directs your eye down his arm to the table, and from there, it says our eye is free to move about the piece looking at the other characters. You could spend months learning composition, and I hope you do. It's super important. But even just these little subtle things that you can do to force the viewer's eye to look where you want to look, it's super powerful. So far we've discussed color and temperature of lights and how powerful that can be, as well as composition. So let's tie those two together. So this is a shot from a movie. I won't tell you the movie yet. Some of you already know. But let's talk about the lighting. So something that I do when I'm trying to figure out composition in my own work, or just kind of looking at other people's composition, I cannot see things that are far away, so I wear glasses. So what I can do is sit further back from my computer screen and take my glasses off, and things get blurry. All the details are smudged together, and I can really just kind of see where the focal point is. So my eyes go immediately to that globe on top of the lamp, and then down the dark pole, I can see the shadowy man there, and then the light through this fog is like guiding my eyes up to this warm light in the window. When we talk about this, it's cool lighting out here. Everything we've talked about so far, warm colors are inviting. They can be playful and cozy. So I showed my wife this image, and she didn't know what it was from. I asked her, hey, what do you think's gonna happen in the next scene? And she said, well, it looks like there's a bad guy or somebody's gonna get kidnapped from the house, from this guy. Which is interesting, because our eyes are drawn upstairs to this warm lighting, and going up typically is like a positive thing. Like we want to always move up the ladder in life. So even our eyes going up, we think more positively. But the movie is The Exorcist. So if you've seen the movie, you know what's gonna happen. This is a priest who's about to go upstairs, and terrible things are gonna happen, and he will attempt to exorcise a demon. So everything we've talked about so far, color, temperature, it would make us believe that this is a bad guy, and that something hopeful is waiting up here, or something innocent is up here. But that is simply not the case. So you could follow these lighting and color theories to a T. You can mix them around. You can do the complete opposite to flip the viewer on their head as well. Oof, you made it. That was a long one. Thank you so much for sticking around for this video. I hope you learned something. If you haven't yet, please subscribe.